Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tomorrow Revenge, where you can witness the power of women. Please follow us to hear today's story.
The handcuffs clicked around my wrists with a sound that felt louder than the artillery drills at dawn. Ella Mitchell, you're under arrest for theft of military property, the MP said, his voice flat as concrete. I didn't fight. Not because I was guilty, God. I wasn't, but because I was too busy staring at the person standing 20 yards away, watching it all go down. My sister, Lena. She leaned against the sandbags outside Fort Brent's armory for, arms crossed, a faint smile touching her lips. Not a happy smile, not a relieved one. Something colder, something that made my stomach drop through the floor. Lena, my voice came out strangled. What is this? She didn't answer, just tilted her head. That smile still in place. The morning sun caught the glint of the eagle-shaped lapel pin I'd been holding when they grabbed me, the one I'd found in Dad's old footlocker last week. The one I'd brought to show her because I thought she'd want to see it. Thought it might bridge the silence that had grown between us. Now it was in an evidence bag, clutched in the hand of a stone-faced sergeant. Move, the MP on my right said, giving me a nudge. That's when the siren started. Not the normal base-wide alarm. This was the lockdown sequence, 3 long wails followed by the automated voice blaring from every speaker on the compound. Condition Alpha. All personnel shelter in place. Condition Alpha. The MPs froze, looking at each other. The one holding the evidence bag tightened his grip. Across the courtyard, Lena's smile vanished. She pushed off the sandbags, her eyes darting toward the main gate as it began to grind shut. What the hell? The younger MP muttered. That's not a drill. Get her to the brig. Now, the senior one ordered. Recovering. Move. They hustled me toward a waiting Humvee. I twisted for one last look at my sister, but she was already gone, melted into the stream of soldiers running for cover. The base was sealing itself like a tomb, and I was inside with a pair of cuffs on and a charge I didn't understand. Interrogation Room 3. Fort Brent. 2 hours later, I was sitting in a room that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. The cuffs were off, but the feeling wasn't. Captain Riggs, a man with a face like a clenched fist, sat across from me. A file folder closed on the table between us. Let's go over it again. Lieutenant Mitchell, he said, his voice dangerously calm. You were found in a restricted area adjacent to the high-value arms vault. In your possession was a class for unauthorized device. Explain. It's a lapel pin, I said, forcing my voice steady. An eagle. My father's. It's not a device. It's a piece of jewelry. I told you I found it in his things. I was bringing it to show my sister. Your sister. Riggs repeated, opening the folder. He slid a sheet of paper toward me. A formal statement. Signed. I recognized the handwriting even before I saw the name at the bottom. Lena R. Mitchell. Specialist. 75th Military Intelligence. She says you've been acting erratically for weeks. That you've made comments about the corrupt military establishment. That you told her you'd found something in your father's effects that proved everything. And that today, you insisted on showing it to her near the armory. He tapped the paper. She got nervous. Did her duty. A cold fury, sharper than any I'd ever felt, rose in my throat. She's lying. Is she? Riggs leaned forward. Because the security logs show you swiped into Armory 4's outer perimeter at 0617. Your sister's key card wasn't used until 0622, 5 minutes after the breach alert was tripped. The timeline suggests she followed you in, then called it in. I didn't trip any alarm. I was just standing there, waiting for her. My mind raced. Lena had asked me to meet her there. Said she had an early shift and it was the only place we could talk privately. I'd thought it was odd. But, God, I was an idiot. A complete, trusting idiot. And the item? Riggs pressed. Just a keepsake? Yes. Then why, he said slowly. Did its detection signature match a Priority 1 Guardian Protocol identifier? I stared at him. A what? Before he could answer, the door opened. A young corporal stuck his head in. Sir? General Croft's orders. He wants her and the asset in his office. Now. Riggs's jaw tightened. He didn't like being interrupted. But he stood up. On your feet, Lieutenant. General Croft? Why does the base commander want to see me? You don't get to ask questions, Riggs said, pulling me up. You get to answer them. The general has taken a personal interest in your case. Consider yourself special. They put the cuffs back on. The walk through the sterile corridors of the brig felt like a dream. Soldiers glanced at me, then quickly looked away. The shame was a living thing, crawling on my skin. My father's daughter, a Mitchell, in cuffs. General Croft's office was at the top of the command center, all polished wooden flags. He stood at the window, his back to us, looking out over the locked-down base. On his desk, in a clear evidence tray, sat the eagle pin. Sir, Lieutenant Mitchell, Riggs announced. Croft turned. He was in his late 50s, with the lean build of a man who still ran 5 miles a day and eyes that missed nothing. He didn't look angry. He looked intense. Captain, wait outside, Croft said, his voice quiet. Sir, procedure. Outside. Riggs left, throwing me a warning look. The door clicked shut. It was just me, the general, and the ghost of my father in that eagle pin. Croft came around the desk, picked up the evidence tray. He studied the pin. Then me. Do you know what this is? Lieutenant. My father's lapel pin. Sir, it is a Mark 7 biometric encryption key, Croft said, holding it up. The gold eagle seemed to glare at me under the fluorescent lights. Part of a project your father worked on. Guardian Protocol. Top secret. Beyond top secret. He set the tray down. Its unauthorized activation, which, according to the sensors, occurred at approximately 0615 this morning, triggered the base-wide lockdown. A failsafe. My blood went cold. I didn't activate anything. I was just holding it. The system reads biosigns. Pulse. Skin conductivity. Stress. Fear. Or intent. His eyes pinned me. Why were you really there? Ella? Can I call you Ella? Your father and I were friends. I was there to see my sister. Sir. She asked me to come. Lena, he said, nodding slowly. She's a good soldier. Did her duty, however painful. Family loyalty is a powerful thing, but loyalty to the oath, that's what separates us from the animals. He walked to the window. Your father understood that. He was a patriot. But even patriots can falter. What are you saying about my father? Guardian Protocol wasn't just a project. It was a safeguard. And the key to deactivating that safeguard. He turned back, his expression grave. Someone has been trying to access the protocol for years. We've had breaches, attempts. Your father's death. He died in a training accident. I cut in, the old anger flaring. Yes, officially. Croft held my gaze. The eagle was supposed to be destroyed with his personal effects. It wasn't. And now, it shows up in your hand, in the heart of a secure facility. On the same day, we detect a new, sophisticated intrusion attempt on the Guardian firewalls. He leaned on his desk. So you'll understand my position. Either you're incredibly unlucky, or you're involved. Your sister's statement suggests the latter. My sister is lying, I said, the words hot and bitter. I don't know why, but she is. I don't know anything about a protocol or firewalls. I found that pin in a box of old photos and dog tags. I brought it to her because I trailed off. Because I missed him. Because I missed us. The way we were before the army. Before the competition. Before the silences. Croft studied me for a long moment. Your emotional distress is noted, but the evidence is problematic. The lockdown will not be lifted until we understand the scope of the threat. You will be held in maximum security confinement pending a full investigation. For how long? As long as it takes. He moved back toward the window. Your father was a complicated man. Ella, he believed in the mission. But he also believed in contingencies. The eagle has eyes. You know, he used to say that. The eagle has eyes. I never understood what he meant until now. A chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning went through me. Dad had said that to both of us when he'd give us those stupid eagle trinkets from the PX. Remember, girls, the eagle has eyes. It was just his thing. A dad joke. wasn't it? Before I could speak, the world outside the window erupted in a flash of light, followed a second later by a dull whump that vibrated the floor. An explosion. Somewhere on the northern perimeter. Croft spun toward the window. What now? An aide burst in, face pale. Sir. Explosion at the perimeter fence. Sector Bravo. Possible intrusion. Croft's head snapped toward me, then to the eagle pin on his desk. His expression shifted. Hardened. Get her to the secure holding cell. Now. And bring me that device. The door flew open. Riggs and 2 MPs rushing in. As they grabbed my arms, I saw Croft scoop the eagle pin out of the tray, his fingers closing tightly around it. You don't know what you're holding, do you? He said, more to himself than to me. As they dragged me out, the last thing I saw was his face in the window's reflection, lit by the distant, rising smoke, staring at the golden eagle in his hand. And for the first time, I was truly afraid. The cell door slammed shut with a finality that echoed in my bones. Maximum security confinement at Fort Brent wasn't a standard brig cell. It was a concrete box deep in the command center's sublevel. All white walls, a solid steel door, and a single, dim LED light set behind reinforced glass in the ceiling. No bunk, just a concrete bench. No sound but the hum of the ventilation and the distant, muffled throb of the base's generators. The lockdown had sealed me in a tomb within a tomb. I sat on the cold bench, the shock of the arrest hardening into a cold, sharp clarity. Lena's smile, the eagle in Croft's hand, the explosion. You don't know what you're holding. The pieces spun, refusing to connect. My mind, desperate for a handhold, fled to the past. 2 years ago, Arlington. The rain fell in a slow, gray drizzle, matching the color of the headstones and the mood. Dad's flag-draped casket seemed too small, too simple for the man who'd filled every room he'd ever entered. Mom was a silent statue under a black umbrella. I stood at rigid attention in my dress blues, the rain soaking into my shoulders. Lena, beside me, wasn't in uniform. She'd been on administrative leave since the incident during her deployment. Her hands were shoved deep in her coat pockets, her face pale and closed off. The 21-gun salute cracked the sky. Taps began, the notes aching and lonely. After, as the crowd dispersed, Lena spoke, her voice raw. They're lying. Ella, about what? I asked, numb, about how he died. A training accident with a vehicle he'd driven 1,000 times? At a base he knew like the back of his hand. She shook her head, rainwater flying. He was poking around, asking questions. About Guardian. I'd frowned. What's Guardian? Something he worked on. He was worried. He tried to tell me, but she trailed off, looking at the casket as it was lowered. They shut him up. Lena, that's paranoid. Dad was a lifer, a believer. If something was wrong, he'd have gone through channels. She'd turned to me then, her eyes blazing with a hurt I hadn't understood. Channels? The channels that are now investigating me? The channels that promoted you to lieutenant while I'm stuck in limbo? You live in his world. Ella, you breathe its air. You don't even see the walls. She'd walked away then, leaving me standing in the rain. That was the crack that became the chasm. Her mistake overseas, a compromised source that led to an agent's death, had left her career in tatters. My path, by comparison, had been straight and upward. I'd thought her anger was at the system. Now, in this cell, I wondered how much of it had been aimed at me. The present interrogation resumes. Time lost meaning. An hour? 3? The door hissed open. It wasn't Riggs. It was General Croft. Alone. He carried a simple tablet. His expression was unreadable. At ease. Lieutenant, he said, though I was already standing. The door sealed behind him. He didn't sit. He paced the small space, the tablet held loosely in one hand. The explosion was a shaped charge on the outer fence. A distraction. No breach. But it tells me someone is very interested in what's happening here. Or rather, in how of here. I don't know anything about an explosion. Sir, I believe you, he said, stopping. The statement surprised me. Your record is spotless. Your psyche vals show a linear, loyal thinker, not the profile of a saboteur or a spy. He tapped the tablet. Your sister's file, however, is more textured. The incident in Al-Assad, the disciplinary hearing, the resentment. Lena made a mistake. She paid for it. Did she? Croft's eyes were piercing. Or did she learn from it? Learn how to hide her tracks? Her motives? He leaned against the wall. The eagle pin. Ella, Guardian Protocol. It was your father's life's work. And his greatest shame. The words hung in the sterile air. My father wasn't capable of shame in his duty. Every man is, Croft said softly. Guardian wasn't just a project. It was a failsafe for the nation's most sensitive cyber defense grid. A backdoor, if you will. And the key, that eagle, was designed to be a physical, biometric trigger. Your father was the primary architect. He believed in it. Until he didn't. Near the end, he grew concerned. He believed the protocol could be misused, turned from a shield into a sword. He wanted to dismantle it, bury it. My heart was pounding. That sounds like responsibility, not shame. The shame, Croft continued, as if I hadn't spoken, came when he tried to act unilaterally. He copied the core data, the master codes. He hid them. He told his superiors the primary drive had corrupted. It was a lie. He created a shadow protocol, and he keyed it to that. He pointed a finger, as if the eagle was between us, and to his own biometric signature, a signature that died with him. Until today, a cold knot formed in my stomach. You think I have his biometrics? The device activated. It read a Mitchell genetic signature. Your father is dead. Lena was 5 meters away. Her biosigns logged on a separate scanner. That leaves you. He took a step closer. Your father didn't just hide the data. Ella, he stole it. He was going to expose what he saw as fatal flaws in the system. In doing so, he would have exposed every vulnerability, every backdoor. To anyone watching, he was prepared to burn the house down to fix a leaking pipe. That's not patriotism. That's treason born of arrogance. No, I whispered. The image of my father, the straight arrow, the flag waver, wouldn't reconcile with Croft's portrait. The evidence is conclusive. Sealed, but conclusive. We've spent years trying to find the data cache he created. The eagle is the only key, and now it's here. And so are you. He straightened. I want to believe you're an unwitting pawn, but the coincidence is extraordinary. So, we will have a little test. A test? The door opened again. Captain Riggs entered, followed by Lena. She was in her duty uniform, her face a careful mask of professionalism and residual distress. She didn't look at me. Specialist Mitchell, Croft said, his voice shifting to a formal, neutral tone. Thank you for coming. Your sister continues to deny the allegations in your statement. I'd like you to repeat your account. For her benefit. Lena took a breath, her eyes finally meeting mine. There was nothing there. No smile. No anger. No sister. Just a flat, empty reporting. Sir, at approximately 0600, my sister, Lieutenant Ella Mitchell, contacted me via text message. She was agitated. She insisted on meeting immediately at a private place. She suggested the exterior of Armory 4. Citing shift change as cover. I expressed reluctance, but she became insistent. When I arrived at 0622, she was already there, holding an object. She said she'd found the key to Dad's legacy and that it proved the whole system was a lie. She said it was time to do what he couldn't. I recognized the object as something from my father's classified work. I attempted to reason with her. She became hostile. I triggered my personal alarm. The MPs arrived shortly after. Every word was a hammer blow. The calm detail of the lie was devastating. That's not what happened. I blurted out. You texted me. You said you needed to talk. That you'd be there. You asked me to bring Dad's things. Lena's mask slipped for a fraction of a second. A flicker of something pain, warning in her eyes. Then it was gone. Why would I do that? Ella? My career is hanging by a thread. Why would I invite my sister, who outranks me, to a restricted area with contraband? It doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense if you're setting her up. Croft mused, looking between us. But the forensics don't support that. Your card wasn't used. Hers was. The activation signal came from her location. The only evidence of your involvement, specialist, is your own testimony. A testimony that implicates you as an accessory after the fact. At the very least, you had every reason to stay silent. Yet you came forward. He turned to me. Why would she lie? Lieutenant? What does she gain by destroying her own sister's career? And risking her own? With a false report. I stared at Lena, searching for the girl I'd shared a room with. The one who'd sneak ice cream with me after lights out. I saw only a soldier. A stranger. I don't know, I said, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a hollow ache. I don't know what she gains. Maybe she gains the truth. Lena said suddenly, her voice slow. Maybe she's tired of living in the shadow of a perfect father and a perfect sister. Maybe she sees someone starting down a dark path and decides to do her duty, no matter the cost. A single tear traced a path down her cheek. It looked utterly real. I'm sorry, Ella, but you're not the person I grew up with. Not anymore. Dad's conspiracy theories. They poisoned you. The performance was masterful. Even I, for a terrible second, doubted my own memory. Had he been the one to text first? In my shock, had I gotten it backwards? Croft watched the exchange like a scientist observing a reaction. He nodded slowly. A tragic but familiar story. The sins of the father, visited upon the daughter. The corrosive nature of misplaced loyalty. He sighed. Captain Riggs, escort specialist Mitchell out. See that her cooperation is noted. Lieutenant Mitchell remains here. Riggs touched Lena's arm. She went with him, not looking back. The door sealed, leaving me alone with General Croft and the crushing weight of her betrayal. She's lying, I said, but it sounded weak. Even to me. Perhaps, Croft said. He didn't seem satisfied. He seemed calculating. But her story has the virtue of simplicity. Yours requires a complex conspiracy. The court-martial will likely favor the simple explanation. He walked to the door. We'll scan the device, decode its layers. If, as you say, it's inert, that will factor in your favor. If it contains what I believe it does, your father's treason becomes yours. He paused at the threshold. Get some rest, Lieutenant. The next few days will be illuminating. He left. The silence rushed back in, louder than before. Lena's tear-streaked face burned behind my eyes. Her words, Dad's conspiracy theories. They poisoned you. Was that what she really thought? Had our rivalry, her downfall, festered into this? Had she convinced herself I was some kind of traitor to justify turning me in? The hours bled together. They brought me water. A tasteless nutrient bar. No more questions. Just the hum and the waiting. I paced the 10 steps my cell allowed, my mind running in frantic, useless circles. Sleep, when it came, was a fitful thing, haunted by my father's face and Lena's smile. I jolted awake to darkness. The LED in the ceiling had been extinguished, plunging the cell into absolute black. The hum of the ventilation seemed louder. I was disoriented, my heart thumping. A power save mode? A malfunction? Then, a whisper. So close it seemed to come from inside my own head. Ella. I froze. The voice was barely audible. Muffled. Don't speak. Don't make a sound. It was Lena. Her voice was coming from the ventilation grate high on the wall near the door. Listen. You have about 60 seconds before the camera reboot is complete. The metal. The eagle. It's a fake. My breath caught. I stared into the blackness toward the sound. A good fake. Biometrically keyed to a Mitchell. Yes, but it's a trigger, not a key. Croft doesn't want to find Guardian. He wants to activate it. His version of it. The data Dad hid. The real data. It proves Croft and others diverted funds. Built a parallel system. A weapon. They need the Eagle to finalize it. To make it look like Dad's legitimate project. They've been searching for the real one for years. My mind reeled. I pressed my lips together, forcing myself to stay silent, to listen. I had to get the real Eagle into the vault. The high-security evidence locker. It's the only place on base Croft can't touch without a judicial order. The only way to get an item in there without suspicion is if it seized evidence from a major crime. I'm sorry, Ella. I'm so sorry. It was the only way. The pieces, the awful, terrible pieces, began to snap together. Her report, the arrest, the lockdown. It was all theater. A brutal, cruel theater to get the real key into a secure box. She'd used me. She'd broken me. To save. What? They're watching me too. Her whisper was frantic now. Croft knows I'm playing him. I think. He's using me to get to you. To get us both. The vault has an auto-purge protocol. Contraband or evidentiary items flagged as decryption hazards are destroyed after 72 hours if no valid case is filed. He'll stall. He'll let the clock run out. The eagle will be pulverized. Dad's evidence. Gone forever. A faint click echoed in the duct. I have to go. The system's coming back. I'll find a way to get you out. We have to retrieve it before the purge. Trust me. Ella, please. Just trust me this once. Why? The word escaped my lips. A bare exhale. A beat of silence. In the dark. I could almost feel her sorrow. Because he was my father too. A soft scrape. Then nothing. The LED light flickered back on, flooding the cell with its harsh, indifferent glow. I stood in the middle of the room, my whole body trembling. Lena's words echoing in the sudden, deafening silence. The eagle is a fake. Croft wants to activate his own weapon. Dad hid the real data. I'm sorry. Trust me. The conflict in her eyes during the confrontation, it hadn't been guilt over a lie. It had been pain over a terrible truth. She'd sacrificed me. My reputation. My freedom. As a pawn in a much larger game. The betrayal was real. The reasons for it were a labyrinth I couldn't navigate. And General Croft. His story about my father's treason. It was the cover. The lie he'd built. He hadn't been trying to uncover a traitor. He'd been trying to bury a whistleblower and steal his work. I looked at the blank walls of my cell. The evidence vault. The auto-purge. 72 hours. Lena's plan had gotten the key into the fortress. But now it was locked in the deepest dungeon. With a timer ticking down. And I was in a cell. And she was under watch. Trust me. For the first time since the handcuffs clicked, a spark ignited in the hollow ache in my chest. It wasn't hope. It was colder. Harder. Purpose. Croft thought he had a pawn and a patsy. Lena thought she had a sacrificed piece and a plan. But the pawn was still on the board. And I was done being moved. I sat back down on the cold bench. My face a placid mask for the camera I knew was watching again. Inside, my mind was racing, scheming, searching for a move of my own. The first move. I had to get out of this box. My father's voice, from a lifetime ago, surfaced in the chaos. The eagle has eyes. Maybe it was time to see what it was looking at. The plan formed in the cold, humming silence. Not as a brilliant stratagem, but as a series of desperate, jagged pieces. Get out. Find proof. Get the eagle. The how was a monstrous blink. This was a maximum security cell in a lockdown base. I was a prisoner, suspected of treason. My only ally had just admitted to framing me. Trust me. Lena's plea echoed, warring with the memory of her smile as the cuffs closed. Could I? Did I have a choice? The alternative was sitting here, waiting for Croft to either fabricate a case against me or let the purge timer erase the only thing that might clear our father's name and possibly stop whatever he was planning. I stood and began a slow circuit of the cell, my eyes tracing every seam, every surface, not as a prisoner, but as a soldier assessing a strong point. The walls were smooth, poured concrete. The door was solid steel, with a small, sealed viewport. The LED light was behind thick, riveted glass. The air came from a ventilation grate, about 12 inches by 6, set high on the wall opposite the door. The same grate Lena's voice had whispered from. I stopped beneath it, staring up. It was fastened with 4 standard Phillips head screws, rusted at the edges. The gaps were too narrow to see through, but a faint draft brushed my face. It was possible. Not easy, but possible. The question was surveillance. Croft was calculating, not careless. The cell would have audio and video. The light had gone out for roughly 60 seconds, Lena's doing. A localized disruption. She had access, or knew someone who did, in the base's systems. But that was a one-time trick. Whatever I did, I had to assume I was being watched and listened to right now. So, I needed a distraction. A reason for the eyes on the other side of the camera to look away, even for a minute. I walked to the door and began pounding on it with the flat of my hand. The sound was a dull, heavy thud in the confined space. Hey, I need to speak to someone. Now. I kept it up, shouting intermittently, mixing demands for a lawyer with claims of claustrophobia, letting my voice edge into panic. I was a lieutenant cracking under pressure, a believable performance. After 5 minutes, a voice crackled from a hidden speaker. Silence. Mitchell. I need water. I feel sick. I slumped against the door, sliding down to sit on the floor, my back to the room, facing the door. I let my breathing sound ragged. Please, just some water. A long pause. Then, the metallic clunk of the door lock disengaging. It swung inward slowly. A young MP, his sidearm holstered but his hand near it, stood there. Another remained in the corridor behind him. The first held a bottle of water. Step back. Slowly, the MP in the doorway ordered. I didn't move from my spot on the floor, curling in on myself slightly. I can't. Dizzy. He sighed, a flicker of impatience on his face. He took 2 steps into the cell, bending to place the water bottle on the floor just inside. It was the opening I needed, but it wasn't the target. His partner in the hall was the one watching me. As the MP straightened, I lunged, not at him, but sideways, slamming my shoulder into the heavy steel door with all my weight. It flew back towards the MP in the hallway. He yelped, caught off guard, and stumbled back. The door hit the wall with a deafening bang. In the same motion, I grabbed the MP inside the cell, not to fight him, but to use his momentum. As he turned, reaching for his weapon, I hooked my foot behind his ankle and shoved him hard towards the open door. He crashed into his still stumbling partner. They went down in a heap of limbs and curses in the corridor. I didn't wait. I was already moving. Not out the door, that led to a guarded corridor. To more MPs. I jumped, my fingers scrambling for the lip of the ventilation grate. My first grip slipped. I heard shouts from the hall. The scrabble of boots. Come on. I jumped again, found purchase, and pulled myself up. My muscles screamed. I braced a foot against the wall, my other hand finding a screw head. I was exposed. A perfect target. I expected to feel the impact of a taser probe any second. Don't tase her. The general wants her coherent, someone yelled. Hands grabbed my ankles. I kicked back wildly, my boot connecting with something soft. A grunt of pain. The grip loosened. With a final, agonizing heave, I got an elbow into the vent shaft, then the other. I wormed my way forward, into the cramped, dark metal duct. Behind me, furious shouts and the beam of a flashlight. She's in the duct. Sound the alarm. Seal the sector. I didn't look back. I crawled, the aluminum buckling and groaning under my weight. The shaft was a square tunnel of darkness, thick with dust and the smell of stale, metallic air. I had no idea where it led. My only thought was away. The alarm Lena had triggered earlier was nothing compared to this. A new, pulsing, urgent siren wailed through the base, vibrating the metal around me. Condition Alpha was still in effect, but now there was a new layer, an escaped, dangerous prisoner. Me. I followed the draft, crawling on elbows and knees. The shaft branched. I went left, towards what I hoped was the interior of the command center, not the perimeter. I needed information, not escape. Not yet. After what felt like an eternity of blind, claustrophobic crawling, I saw a dim light ahead, another grate. I slowed, inching forward. The grate looked down into an office. A familiar office. Polished wood. Flags. General Croft's office. It was empty. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was insane. But it was also an opportunity. The great screws were on my side. I pulled my dog tags over my head, using the edge of the metal to work at the screws. They were tight, but they turned. 2 minutes of frantic, silent work, and the grate came free. I lowered it quietly inside the duct and peered down. The office was dark, lit only by the emergency lights from the corridor filtering through the blinds. The evidence tray with the eagle pin was gone from the desk. Of course, but Croft's computer terminal was there. And on the wall behind the desk was a large, framed photo of my father and Croft, younger, arms around each other's shoulders, standing in front of a helicopter. They were smiling. Dad's smile was easy, open. Croft's was tighter, the eyes not quite matching. I dropped down, landing softly on the thick carpet. I went straight to the desk. The terminal was locked, but Croft, like many senior officers, had a physical notebook tucked in his top drawer. I found it, filled with precise handwriting, meeting notes, codes, and a password, written on a sticky note and stuck to the inside cover. F0 Art BR3 NT Guard, an amateur, but convenient. I logged in. The system was a secured military intranet, but I had access to basic files. I navigated to the personnel directory, my fingers flying. My father's service record. I'd read it 100 times. I searched for project codenames: Guardian, Watchtower, Sentinel. Access denied. Of course. Then I remembered. The physical files. Dad was old school. He trusted paper. When he'd had an office here, years ago, he'd shown me a trick. A hollow in the back of the middle desk drawer, behind the filing rail. For your eyes only. Kiddo, he joked, showing me where he hid my birthday candy. Did Croft use the same desk? It was worth a shot. I yanked the middle drawer open. It was full of stationery, seals, a bottle of bourbon. I felt along the back. The panel was solid. Disappointment curdled in my gut. Then my fingers found a slight irregularity near the bottom. I pressed. A small section of the wood paneling clicked inward and slid sideways. My breath caught. Inside the shallow space was a single, old-fashioned USB drive and a small, leather-bound notebook. I grabbed them both. The USB drive was unmarked. The notebook's first page had my father's handwriting, for Lena Ella. If you're reading this, the eagle's eyes are open. A noise from the corridor, voices approaching. I stuffed the notebook and drive into the waistband of my pants, pulled my shirt over them. I looked at the vent. Too slow. The door handle began to turn. I dove behind the large, heavy curtain that framed the window, pressing myself against the wall just as the door opened and the lights flicked on. Total security lapse. And I want heads on plates. It was Croft's voice, tight with fury. She can't have gotten far. The lockdown confines her to this building. Sweep every room, every closet, every damn air duct. Yes, sir. A younger voice replied, Captain Riggs. We've isolated the wing. She's here somewhere. Find her. But remember, she is not to be harmed. She is vital. And she's smarter than she looks. Croft's footsteps moved towards the desk. I heard the creak of his chair as he sat. Leave me, and get Specialist Mitchell. Bring her to the secure briefing room. It's time we had a more direct conversation. Sir. Riggs's footsteps retreated. The door closed. Silence. Except for the muffled sirens and the soft tap of Croft's fingers on his keyboard. I didn't dare breathe. I could see a sliver of the room through the gap in the curtains. Croft was staring at his screen, a deep frown on his face. He picked up his secure phone. The asset is temporarily misplaced, he said into the receiver. His voice low. No. The primary objective is unchanged. The purge timer on the vault is our friend. It eliminates the physical key and creates a tragedy. A rogue officer, the disgraced daughter of a traitor, stealing and destroying evidence before taking her own life during the lockdown chaos. A clean narrative. He listened for a moment. The sister is compliant. For now. She believes she's playing a deep game. She'll lead us to any secondary caches. Once we have everything, the training accident that claimed the father can easily claim the daughters. The Mitchell line ends, and Guardian becomes ours. Permanently. The cold, Casual evil of his words seeped into me, colder than the concrete cell. It wasn't just about covering up corruption. It was about erasure. My father, Lena, me, we were all just obstacles to be sanitized from history. Understood. Croft said finally. I'll handle the sister. You ensure the perimeter remains sealed. No one in or out until the purge is complete and we've verified the data core is ours. He hung up. He sat for another minute, then stood abruptly, his chair rolling back. He walked to the photo on the wall, the one with my father. He stared at it, then reached out and adjusted it slightly. A small, precise movement. Stubborn to the end. John, he murmured, almost sadly. But sentiment is a luxury we can't afford. He left the office, turning off the light. The door clicked shut, locking. I waited in the dark behind the curtain for a full minute, letting his words replay, letting the horror solidify into a new, crystalline resolve. He'd just given me the timetable, the purge, our deaths, and he'd confirmed Lena's story. She was playing a dangerous game, and Croft knew it. He was using her. I had to move. I slipped from behind the curtain. I couldn't go back the way I came. The vent was a death trap now. I went to the door, listening. Nothing. Croft's office would have a manual override key somewhere. I found it in a magnetic holder under his desk. I took it, unlocked the door, and peered out. The corridor was empty, lit by the red pulse of alarm lights. The sector was sealed, which meant bulkhead doors were closed at either end. But the interior rooms might not be locked. I had to get back to the holding area, to my cell, or near it. It was the last place they'd look once they realized I wasn't in the ducts nearby. And I needed to see Lena, moving like a shadow. I retraced the route from memory, avoiding the main corridors, using maintenance halls and empty offices. The base was a ghost town under the lockdown. Most personnel confined to quarters or duty stations. The search, for now, seemed concentrated elsewhere. I found the hallway outside the secure holding cells. The door to my cell stood open, the interior lights spilling out. 2 MPs were there, one on a radio. Negative contact in the eastern ducts. She's not in the system. I ducked into a nearby equipment alcove, my heart pounding. How to get to her? I couldn't just walk up, as if summoned by my thought. A door down the hall opened. Lena emerged, escorted by Riggs. She looked pale, her arms held stiffly at her sides. Riggs was speaking quietly, urgently to her. I couldn't hear the words. They stopped outside what I assumed was the secure briefing room. Riggs opened the door, gestured her in. He didn't follow immediately, checking his phone. This was my chance. As Riggs turned slightly, distracted by his screen, I stepped out of the alcove and into the open doorway of my old cell. The 2 MPs inside had their backs to me, looking at the vent. I slipped inside, pressing myself against the wall just inside the door. Out of their immediate sightline, I heard Riggs's footsteps continue down the hall, away from the briefing room. He was giving her time alone? To sweat? Or was it a trap? I counted to 30, the MPs in the cell muttering about the duct size. Then I moved. In 3 swift strides, I was across the hall and through the briefing room door, closing it softly behind me. Lena whirled from where she stood staring at a blank monitor on the wall. Her eyes went wide with shock, then fear. Ella? What are you? How did you? Shut up and listen. I hissed, cutting her off. My voice was low, venomous. I just heard Croft on the phone. The purge timer is his friend. He's going to let the Eagle be destroyed, then stage a murder-suicide. The disgraced daughter of a traitor destroys the evidence and kills herself. And her compliciter sister. The Mitchell line ends. Clean. All the color drained from Lena's face. The professional mask shattered, replaced by raw, gut-churning fear. No, he promised. He said if I helped, if I played my part, you'd be safe. We'd be. He lied. I said, the words brutal and simple. I pulled the notebook and USB drive from my waistband, held them up. I found these. In Croft's desk. Dad hid them. For Lena. Ella, you were right. About everything. She stared at the items as if they were holy relics. Or grenades. The eagle's eyes. I haven't looked yet. We don't have time. You said you had a plan to get me out. I'm out. Now what? How do we get into the evidence vault before it's turned to scrap? She took a shaky breath, forcing composure. The vault requires dual authorization. 2 biometrics. Retina and palm print. Croft has one set. He needs the other. Whose? She looked at me, her eyes filled with a terrible apology. Dad's. Or a close genetic match. He tried to use mine. It failed. It needs a primary genetic key. His. Or yours. You're the firstborn. Your biometric signature is closer to his. The fake eagle he gave you triggered the system. Remember? It recognized a primary key. The realization hit me like a physical blow. He doesn't just need the eagle. He needs me. Or me and the eagle. That's why he didn't just throw me in a hole. That's why he wants me coherent. Lena nodded grimly. Yes. And he knows I know. So he's keeping me close. Feeding me just enough truth to keep me compliant. Hoping I'll lead him to any other copies of Dad's data. He thinks I'm a desperate, jealous sister he can manipulate. And I let him think that. Her jaw tightened. Getting you arrested was the only way to get the real key into a place he couldn't instantly grab it. The evidence vault is a black box. Even the base commander can't just waltz in. It needs a judge's order or a documented chain of evidence for an active felony investigation. My report gave him that. But the auto-purge was my insurance. I set the flag on the Eagle's file myself. A suspected encryption hazard. It triggers a 72-hour destruction cycle unless the investigating JAG officer certifies it as evidence. Croft doesn't control the JAG here. He can stall, but he can't stop it without exposing himself. He has to get it out before the timer hits 0. And to get it out, he needs me to open the vault with him. I finished. The awful, elegant trap became clear. She'd baited a trap for Croft with the one thing he couldn't resist, the key, and used the system's own rules to put a time limit on it. And she'd used me as the bait. So what's the play? Lena? He's going to walk in here any minute. He'll have me. He'll have the fake eagle. He'll force us to open the vault. No, she said. A fierce, desperate light in her eyes. The play is, we give him what he wants. We open the vault. I stared at her. What? The vault's final security protocol, she whispered, stepping closer. If it's opened under duress, if the biometric readings show extreme stress, elevated heart rate, the system recognizes a hostage situation. It doesn't just unlock. It sends a silent, Priority 1 distress signal to the Pentagon's Inspector General and the Senate Armed Services Committee. It also floods the chamber with a non-lethal neuroinhibitor gas. Incapacitates everyone inside. It gives external authorities time to respond. My mind raced. Croft would know that. He designed the base security. He designed the old system. Lena said, a ghost of her old, cunning smile touching her lips. The vault upgrade was 2 years ago. A black budget project. Dad oversaw the specs. Croft was told it was a hardware refresh. He doesn't know about the duress protocol. I only know because Dad's notes mentioned the Eagle's final screen. I cross-referenced the project codes. It was audacious. Insane. Risky beyond belief. It required Croft to take us both to the vault. To force us to open it. And to be arrogant enough to believe he was still in control. And if the gas doesn't work? If he shoots us first? Then we're dead, she said flatly. And he gets the key. And Dad's name is mud forever. And a weapon we don't understand becomes his. But if we do nothing, we're dead in a few days anyway. And the result is the same. This way, we fight. She reached out, tentatively, and gripped my arm. Her hand was ice cold. I am sorry, Ella, for all of it. For the jealousy. For the silence. For using you. You didn't deserve any of it. But please, trust me. This one last time. Let me fix this. I looked at her hand on my arm, then into her eyes. I saw the girl from Arlington, drowning in grief and suspicion. I saw the soldier who'd made a terrible mistake and been broken for it. And I saw my sister, who had, in her own twisted, dangerous way, been trying to protect our father's legacy all along. She'd just forgotten to protect me in the process. Before I could answer, The door handle turned. Lena's eyes widened. She dropped her hand, and the mask of the conflicted, fearful sister slid back into place. I had nowhere to hide. The door opened. General Croft stood there, with Captain Riggs and 2 armed MPs behind him. He took in the scene, me, out of my cell, facing Lena. He didn't look surprised. He looked amused. "Well," General Croft said, a slow smile spreading across his face, "I guess sisterly time is over." How touching. His eyes flicked to the notebook and USB drive I still clutched in my hand. "And it seems you've been busy. Found a few of your father's mementos." "I see." Riggs and the MPs raised their weapons, training them on me. I didn't move. Croft stepped fully into the room, his gaze moving from me to Lena and back again. "I'll take those," he said, holding out his hand. "And then, we're all going to take a little trip to the evidence vault. It's time to end this family reunion, permanently." The walk to the evidence vault was a silent, armed procession through the heart of the locked-down base. General Croft led, his stride purposeful. Captain Riggs walked beside me, his hand resting on his sidearm. 2 MPs flanked Lena, and 2 more brought up the rear. My father's notebook and the USB drive were now tucked inside Croft's jacket. The fake eagle lapel pin gleamed in his other hand, held between his thumb and forefinger like a poisonous insect. I caught Lena's eye once. Her face was a pale, closed mask, but she gave an almost imperceptible nod. "The plan is on. Be ready." I tried to project the same resolve, but fear was a cold stone in my gut. The duress protocol was a theory, a line of code her father had written. Would it work? Would Croft's biometric scanners even register our stress as duress and not just normal fear? So many variables. So many ways to die. We descended in a secure elevator, down into the subterranean levels where the air grew colder and the hum of machinery was a constant, oppressive presence. The corridors here were all brushed steel and stark white light, devoid of markings. This was Fort Brent's sanctum sanctorum, where its darkest secrets and most valuable prizes were stored. We stopped before a featureless steel door, wider and heavier than any other. Above it, a single red light glowed. Croft turned to face us. The pleasant facade was gone, stripped away to reveal the cold ambition beneath. "The high-security evidence repository," Croft said, his voice echoing slightly in the sterile hall. "Beyond this door is the property of the United States military justice system. What goes in and what comes out is governed by law, protocol." He smiled, a thin, humorless line, "except when it isn't." "Captain." Riggs stepped forward. He took a key card from his pocket, different from the standard issue, and slotted it into a nearly invisible reader beside the door. A panel slid open, revealing a biometric scanner. Riggs placed his palm on the glass, then leaned forward for a retinal scan. A soft chime sounded. "Authentication 1. Captain Marcus Riggs, Fort Brent Provost Marshal." "Confirmed," a neutral female computer voice stated. "Now," Croft said, turning to me, "the secondary authentication. A familial biometric key, linked to the original evidence, the late Lieutenant Colonel John Mitchell." He held out the fake eagle pin. "Place your thumb on the eagle's head, Lieutenant Mitchell. And you." "Specialist," he said, nodding to Lena. "On its tail. The system requires a dual genetic confirmation from direct descendants." So that was it. The fake wasn't just a trigger, it was a biometric bridge, designed to spoof the system into accepting our readings as our father's. Clever. And terrifying. Lena and I exchanged a glance. This was the moment. We had to sell it. I let my hand tremble slightly as I reached out. Lena did the same, her breath hitching. Our fingers touched the cool metal of the eagle at the same time. A soft blue light emanated from the pin, scanning our fingerprints. "Genetic sequence Mitchell. Primary and secondary." Recognized, the computer voice intoned. "Proceed to final verification." A new panel opened beside the door, revealing 2 more scanners, larger and more complex. One for a palm print, one for a retina. "You know what to do," Croft said, his voice low and dangerous. "Together, or Captain Riggs will be forced to encourage cooperation." The MPs behind us shifted, their weapons making soft, metallic sounds. Lena stepped forward first, her jaw set. She placed her palm on the scanner, then leaned into the retinal unit. A beam of red light passed over her eye. Mitchell. Lena R. Confirmed. Access conditional. Escort required. All eyes turned to me. My mouth was dry. This was it. The point of no return. I had to be scared, but not too scared. Elevated heart rate. Stress markers. But not the flatline of terror that might fail the scan or look like coercion. I thought of my father's face. I thought of Croft's plan to erase us. The fear became real. Hot and acidic. I placed my palm on the cold glass. A green light traced its outline. Then I leaned into the retinal scanner. The red beam was blinding for an instant. Mitchell. LSC. Confirmed. Access conditional. Subject of investigation. Duress parameters analyzed. My heart stopped. Duress parameters analyzed. The system had seen it. It had registered our stress. Was that good? Was that the protocol recognizing a hostage situation? Secondary authentication complete. The computer voice continued, giving no other indication. Vault access granted. All personnel are advised that the internal environment is secure and monitored. Unauthorized removal of evidence is a court-martial offense. With a series of heavy, hydraulic clunks, the massive steel door began to recede into the wall, then slide sideways. Beyond was darkness. Then, as we crossed the threshold, motion-sensitive lights flickered on, revealing a long, narrow chamber. The Fort Brent evidence vault wasn't a room, it was a high-tech cathedral. Row upon row of floor-to-ceiling shelving units, made of a transparent, reinforced polymer, stretched into the distance. Inside each compartment were items tagged and cataloged, weapons in clear cases, sealed document tubes, strange devices I couldn't identify. The air was cold and smelled of ozone and sterile plastic. In the center of the room was a single, freestanding podium with a terminal. "Where is it?" Croft asked. His voice hushed in the vast space. Lena pointed a shaky finger down the central aisle. Row G. Compartment 72. It was logged in as Evidence Item FB 451. Suspected cryptographic hazard. "Lead the way," Croft said, gesturing with his sidearm. It was the first time I'd seen him draw it. The sight of the black barrel, pointed loosely in our direction, made the duress protocol feel terrifyingly fragile. We walked, our footsteps echoing. The MPs and rigs fanned out behind us, covering the entrance. The place felt like a tomb. We reached Row G. Compartment 72 was at shoulder height. Inside, resting on a black foam pad, was the eagle lapel pin, the real one. It looked identical to the fake in Croft's hand, but something about it seemed heavier. Even through the transparent wall. "Open it," Croft ordered Lena. She went to the terminal on the podium. Her fingers flew over the holographic interface. Compartment 72. Request manual release for evidentiary review. Authorization Michelino R. Case file Theta 79er. A soft beep. The front of the compartment hissed open, sliding upward. The air from inside was even colder. Croft stepped forward, eagerly, pocketing the fake pen and reaching for the real one. "Don't," I said, the word out of my mouth before I could stop it. He paused, his hand inches from the eagle. He looked at me, one eyebrow raised. "Don't? It's evidence in an active investigation," I said, scrambling for a reason. "Any reason to delay. You removing it yourself breaks the chain of custody. It could be inadmissible." I was parroting JAG procedure I'd learned in officer training, and it sounded weak even to me. Croft actually chuckled. "A dry, unpleasant sound, Lieutenant. By the time any court sees this, it will be part of a narrative I control. The chain of custody will be whatever I say it is." He plucked the eagle from its pad. He held it up, his face lit with a covetous glee. "After all these years. The key. The real key." He turned it over in his fingers. "Your father was a sentimental fool. He could have had wealth, power. Instead, he wanted truth. He wanted to expose flaws." Croft's expression hardened. "He called me the night before he died. Did you know that?" He said he'd found anomalies in the procurement logs. He said he was going to the Inspector General. I told him to sleep on it. The next day, his Humvee lost pressure in its brake lines on a steep grade. A tragic accident. He looked at the eagle, then at us. Sentiment is a weakness. And in our line of work, weakness gets people killed. The admission. So casual. So cold. Hung in the air. Lena made a small, choked sound. I felt the truth of it hit me like a physical blow. He'd killed our father. Not an accident. Murder. You bastard. Lena whispered, her voice trembling with rage. A realist. Croft corrected. He walked back to the podium, placing the eagle pin on a different interface, a shallow, glowing depression. The moment the metal touched the surface, the entire vault seemed to come alive. Holographic displays flickered to life above the podium, showing scrolling lines of code, schematics of something that looked like a satellite network, and streams of encrypted data. Guardian Protocol. Croft breathed, his eyes devouring the displays. Not a shield. A spear. A key that can unlock any door. Listen to any conversation. Blind any eye. And with the data core your father so kindly hid. He pulled the USB drive from his pocket and slotted it into a port on the podium. I'll have the root access codes. The master key to the kingdom. A progress bar appeared on the main hologram, downloading primary data core. 5%. The duress protocol. I said, my voice surprisingly steady. It's triggered, isn't it? The system knows we're under duress. It's sending a signal right now. Croft didn't even look away from the screen. The Mark 7 vaults have a duress feature. It sends an alert to the local provost marshal's office. Captain Riggs is the provost marshal. The alert will show on his tablet. He will ignore it. He glanced at Riggs, who gave a tight, confirming nod. Your father's final scream, as he called it in his notes, is a whisper that goes nowhere. Lena's plan. Our only hope. It was crumbling before it even began. My eyes met Lena's. I saw the same despair there, mixed with a furious, defiant anger. Croft had been 2 steps ahead. He'd known about the duress protocol. He'd controlled for it. The progress bar climbed. 25%. 50%. Croft watched it like a man watching his destiny unfold. The data, the power he'd sought for years, was flowing into his control. The fake story, the staged deaths, they were just the final cleanup. You'll never get away with it. I said, the words hollow. People will ask questions. About what? Croft said, finally turning to us, a patronizing smile on his face. A troubled officer, daughter of a disgraced traitor, steals a sensitive device. In her desperation to destroy the evidence of her father's crimes, she triggers a catastrophic failure in the evidence vault's containment systems. A tragic accident. Her sister, trying to stop her, perishes as well. General Croft, valiantly trying to intervene, is injured. A decorated hero, securing a dangerous asset. The media will eat it up. The smile widened. And with Guardian, I'll be able to ensure the right questions get asked, and the right answers are given. Forever. 70%. 80%. The holographic schematics shifted, showing a global map with nodes flashing. It was a system of terrifying scope. This wasn't just about money or covering up procurement fraud. This was about control on a scale I couldn't comprehend. Lena was staring at the progress bar, her body rigid. Then, her eyes flicked to me. Not in despair, in calculation. She gave a tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head. Not yet. 90%. 95%. It must be killing you, Croft said, looking at Lena. To have come so close. To have played the loyal, resentful sister so perfectly. To have gotten the key right under my nose. And for what? To deliver it to me on a silver platter. 100%. Download complete. Decrypting. A new series of characters scrolled across the screen. Croft leaned forward, his face bathed in the blue light. This was it. The moment of his triumph. The characters stopped. A single line of text appeared in the center of the hologram. Decryption failure. Data core corrupt. Signature mismatch. Silence. Croft blinked. What? The message flashed once, then changed. Initiating data purge protocol. Evidence vault auto purge sequence activated. All contaminated materials scheduled for destruction. Timer, 10 o'clock and counting. A loud, resonant CLUN echoed through the vault, followed by the distinct sound of massive bolts slamming home. The main entrance door sealed shut. At the same time, a panel on the ceiling hissed open. Dozens of small, nozzle-like apertures telescoped downward. "What is this?" Croft snarled, whirling on Lena. "What did you do?" Lena's mask of fear was gone. In its place was a cold, fierce smile. "I didn't do anything. General, you did. You downloaded the data. The wrong data. The USB. It's the data from your father's files," Croft yelled, pulling the drive from the port as if it were on fire. "It's a data core," Lena said, her voice ringing in the chamber. "One of two. The one labeled Guardian Prime. The one that looks real." Dad wasn't a fool. He was a pragmatist. He knew if someone like you ever got close, they'd go for the obvious prize. So he made a prize just for you. A Trojan horse. It doesn't contain access codes. It contains a location beacon, a system-corroding virus, and purge activation commands for any secure military system it's introduced to. You just infected your own network and triggered the vault's self-destruct sequence. Congratulations. Croft's face went from confusion to dawning horror to incandescent rage. He stared at the USB drive in his hand, then at the hologram, which now showed a large, red 10-minute countdown timer. 9:59, 9:58. You little bitch, he breathed. Then he roared. "Shut it down." Riggs rushed to the podium, his fingers stabbing at the interface. "I can't. Sir, the system is non-responsive. The purge command is overriding everything. It's locked to the mainframe." "Then override the mainframe." Croft backhanded Riggs across the face, sending the captain staggering. "We have 10 minutes before this vault and everything in it is incinerated." The MPs were looking around, panicked. The sealed door, the hissing nozzles in the ceiling, the giant, ticking clock. Their discipline wavered. In that moment of chaotic distraction, Lena moved. She wasn't aiming for a weapon. She was aiming for the eagle pin, still sitting in the interface depression. She lunged. Croft was faster. He saw her move and swept the pin off the podium, clutching it in his fist. At the same time, he brought his sidearm up, aiming it not at Lena, but directly at me. "Enough," he bellowed. The sound echoed. Everyone froze. "The game is not over. You think you've won? You've only forced my hand." His eyes were wild, darting between the timer, 9:12, and us. "The purge destroys the evidence." "Fine. It also destroys you. My story remains intact. I still have the key." He held up the fist clutching the eagle. "I can rebuild the system from the original schematics. It will take longer, but I have the key. You've given me nothing but a minor inconvenience." The beacon in that data core has been transmitting its location and a full data packet since the moment you plugged it in. Lena shot back, her courage buoyed by his fury. "To servers I set up. Off base. Encrypted. Someone will be listening. The story won't hold. I'll find your servers and burn them." Croft screamed. He was unraveling, the cool facade shattered by the ticking clock and the ruin of his perfect plan. "But first, I'm going to make sure you don't enjoy this little victory." His finger tightened on the trigger. I was looking down the barrel. Time seemed to slow. This was it. Not in a grand standoff, but executed in a panic in a sealed vault. A deep, vibrating THU echoed through the floor, followed by another. Then the wail of a new siren, different from the lockdown alarm. This was a pulsating, urgent tone I'd only heard in drills. External breach. Perimeter compromised. Everyone in the vault froze, listening. The sound was muffled by the thick walls, but it was unmistakable. "What now?" Riggs gasped, holding his bleeding mouth. Croft's head snapped toward the sealed vault door, his gun wavering. The confusion lasted only a second before the vault's external intercom crackled to life. "Attention. Personnel within Fort Brent Evidence Repository. This is Colonel Jonathan Carter. United States Army Criminal Investigation Command. The base is now under the jurisdiction of CID. General Martin Croft. You are ordered to stand down and surrender yourself and all personnel. Open the vault doors immediately. The voice was calm, authoritative, and utterly alien to the chaos inside. Lena's face broke into a real, wild smile. The duress protocol, she said, her voice thick with triumph. It doesn't send an alert to the provost marshal. It sends a priority one. Encrypted burst to a CID watchdog server. A final scream loud enough for the whole world to hear. Told you Dad wasn't sentimental. Croft's expression was a terrifying mix of fury and calculation. The world outside was collapsing. His plan was in tatters. But he still had the key. And he had us. CID, he spat. Your father's old friend. The idealist. He made a decision. His eyes hardening. The panicked rage was gone. Replaced by the cold focus of a cornered animal. They're outside. They can't get in. Not before the purge. He grabbed me, yanking me in front of him, his arm locking around my throat, the barrel of his pistol pressing hard into my temple. But I'm not dying in here with you. He dragged me backward, toward the far wall of the vault, away from the main door. Riggs. The secondary exit. No. Riggs, shaken but obedient, ran to a seemingly blank section of wall near the back shelving units. He pressed a sequence against the steel. A hidden keypad lit up. He typed a code. With a groan of hidden hydraulics, a smaller, circular hatch, like a bank vault door, began to iris open in the wall. A dark tunnel lay beyond. An escape route. Of course he had one. The rest of you, cover that door. Croft yelled at the MPs, gesturing to the main entrance. Hold them off as long as you can. It was a death sentence. And the MPs knew it. They looked at the sealed main door. At the timer, 7:45. At their general holding a hostage. But training and fear won. They took up positions, aiming their rifles at the door. Lena, move. Croft barked, jamming the gun harder into my head. I could smell the oil, feel the cold metal. Or I paint this vault with her brains and walk out alone. Lena's eyes met mine, filled with apology and a desperate promise. She raised her hands and slowly walked toward the hatch. Riggs went first, disappearing into the dark. Croft backed in, dragging me with him. Just before we crossed the threshold, he looked at the remaining MPs. You've served with honor. Your families will be taken care of. Then we were through. The hatch began to spiral shut behind us. I caught one last glimpse of the vault, the terrified MPs facing the door. The holographic timer blinking 7:30. The nozzles in the ceiling beginning to glow with a faint, ominous orange heat. Then darkness swallowed us, broken only by the beam of a flashlight Riggs had produced. The tunnel was narrow, forcing Croft to shove me ahead of him. We half ran, half stumbled down a steep, graded incline. The sounds of the base, the new sirens, distant shouts, were faint but growing clearer. This tunnel led up, toward the surface. Where does this come out? Lena asked from ahead, her voice tight. Motor pool auxiliary exit. Riggs grunted. We have a vehicle. We're not finished. Not by a long shot. My mind raced. CID was here. The vault was purging. Croft had the key and was using me as a human shield. Lena's plan had worked, but it had also backed a ruthless man into a corner with the one thing he wanted most. We were out of the fire, but not out of the frying pan. After 2 minutes of desperate travel, we reached another hatch. Riggs worked another combination. This one opened into a small, concrete room filled with spare vehicle parts. A single heavy door stood on the far side. He listened, then cracked it open. The sounds of the base in chaos were louder here. Running footsteps, shouted orders, the distant thump of a helicopter. Clear, Riggs whispered. Croft pushed me through the door. We emerged behind a row of parked Humvees in a motor pool bay. The main doors were shut, but a personnel door was ajar, showing slivers of flashing red light from outside. The bay was empty, the mechanics presumably mobilized for the breach. That one, Croft said, pointing to a Humvee with a mounted communications array. Riggs, drive. Specialist, in the back. Try anything. and the lieutenant dies before you can blink. We moved. Riggs climbed into the driver's seat, firing up the engine. Lena climbed into the back. Croft shoved me into the passenger seat, then slid in right after me, keeping the gun pressed into my ribs. The close quarters made his control absolute. "Go," Croft ordered. "Perimeter fence. Sector Delta." The old access road. Riggs threw the Humvee into gear and gunned it toward the large vehicle bay door. It began to roll up automatically, triggered by the approaching vehicle. As it rose, the full chaos of Fort Brent was revealed. The base was swarming with unfamiliar soldiers in black fatigues and helmets marked with CID in white letters. They moved in tight formations, securing buildings, rounding up Croft's loyalists. In the distance, near the main gate, I saw the twisted, smoking wreckage of the perimeter fence, the distraction explosion from earlier. It hadn't been a distraction for an intruder. It had been CID's entry point. "Go! Go! Go!" Croft yelled. Riggs slammed the accelerator. The heavy vehicle shot out of the bay, bouncing over the curb. A CID squad turned, shouting, raising their weapons. But they couldn't fire. Not with a hostage in the vehicle. They scattered as Riggs aimed for a gap between two buildings, heading away from the main confrontation, toward the northern edge of the base. The Humvee roared down a service road. In the side mirror, I saw figures giving chase, then falling back. We were heading for the fence line, where the woods began. The old access road, a dirt track used for maintenance. Probably unguarded. They'll have the whole base surrounded in minutes, Lena said from the back, her voice raised over the engine. They'll have the main gates and the known exits. Croft snarled. They don't know about the old fire trail. Not unless your father put that in his files too. We hit the perimeter fence. It was chain link, 15 feet high, with razor wire. But there, nearly overgrown, was a vehicle-sized gate, held shut by a simple chain and padlock. Riggs didn't slow down. The Humvee hit the gate dead on. The chain snapped with a metallic scream, and the gates burst open, swinging wildly. We were through, bouncing onto a rutted dirt track that disappeared into the dense Virginia woods. We'd escaped Fort Brent, but as the trees closed in around us and the sounds of the base faded, the reality sank in. I was in a vehicle with a man who killed my father, his loyal captain, and my sister. He had a gun on me. He had the key to a weapon of unimaginable power. And behind us, a vault was counting down to its own destruction, taking with it any hope of quick, easy evidence. Croft finally took the gun from my ribs, though he kept it trained on me. He was breathing heavily, his eyes fixed on the dark road ahead, in the glow of the dashboard lights. He looked at the eagle pin still clutched in his hand. "A minor inconvenience," he repeated, more to himself than to us. He looked back at Lena, his gaze venomous. "You and your father. You think in puzzles and tricks. I think in results. I have the key. The rest is just engineering. And you," he shifted the gun to point at Lena in the back seat, "have just outlived your usefulness." The woods swallowed us whole. The Humvee's headlights cut shaky tunnels through the darkness, illuminating the overgrown ruts of the forgotten fire trail. Branches scraped and shrieked against the armored sides. General Croft had the gun pointed at Lena now, his finger taut on the trigger. The raw hatred in the confined space was a third presence, thick enough to choke on. "You think in tricks," Croft repeated, his voice a low rasp. "I think in permanence. Then think about this." Lena shot back, her eyes not on the gun, but on his face. She was braver than I'd ever given her credit for, or more reckless. The beacon in that data core has been live for over 10 minutes. It's not just a location ping. It's a data stream. Encrypted financial transfers. Falsified weapons specs. Your voice ordering my father's murder. It's all flying to a server farm in Delaware right now. CID has it. Carter has it. Killing us doesn't erase that. It just makes you a murderer on the run, with the entire United States Army hunting you. Not for corruption. For treason. Croft's eyes narrowed. He was calculating, weighing her bluff. Carter is an investigator. He follows rules. He needs warrants, chains of evidence. A data stream from an anonymous server is hearsay. I have friends. I have the key. I can disappear and rebuild. And live how? I asked, finding my voice. It was steadier than I felt. Looking over your shoulder forever? Your face on every screen? The great General Croft. A fugitive. Is that the legacy you wanted? Quiet, he snarled. But the gun wavered slightly. I'd hit a nerve. This man craved respect. Power. A place in history. Being a hunted rat was not part of the vision. Riggs, hunched over the wheel, spoke up, his voice tense. Sir, we need a destination. This track ends at a creek bed in about 2 clicks. After that, it's on foot or we're stuck. Before Croft could answer, a new sound cut through the growl of the engine and the thrash of branches. The wump off helicopter rotors, low and fast, approaching from the direction of the base. They're in the air, Riggs yelled, panic edging his voice. Croft swore viciously. He made a decision. The gun swinging back to me. Stop the vehicle. Here. Riggs slammed on the brakes. The Humvee skidded to a halt in a small, muddy clearing. The chopper sound was getting louder. A searchlight spearing through the canopy somewhere behind us. Out! All of you, Croft barked, shoving me toward the door. We tumbled out into the cold, damp night. The air smelled of pine and wet earth. Croft kept the gun on us, his eyes darting to the sky. The searchlight beam swept through the trees a few hundred yards back, illuminating the world in brief. Stark flashes. The creek. Croft ordered. Move. Single file. Riggs. Take point. Mitchell, he said, jabbing the gun at me. You're behind him. Lena. Behind her. I'm the caboose. Any deviation. I drop the one in front of you. Understood. We moved. Riggs pushed through the underbrush toward the sound of rushing water. I followed, my mind racing. The helicopter was close, but the forest canopy was thick. They'd have thermal, but the wet ground and cool air would make it tricky. We had minutes, maybe less. We reached the creek, a shallow, rocky stream about 20 feet wide, cutting through a small gully. The water was loud, masking other sounds. Downstream, Croft said, stay in the water. It'll throw off the dogs and the thermals. We splashed into the icy water. It soaked through my boots instantly, the cold a shocking clarity. We moved as fast as the slippery rocks allowed, the helicopter noise now directly overhead, the searchlight probing the trees above the creek bank. We were in a dead zone, the high banks shielding us from direct view. After 100 yards, Croft called a halt. We were at a bend where the creek bank had collapsed, creating a small, muddy cave under the exposed roots of a giant oak. It was a pitiful hiding place, but it was cover. In there, he said, gesturing with the gun. We crouched under the tangled roots, mud seeping into our clothes. The 4 of us were crammed together, breathing hard, listening as the helicopter made another pass, then another. Its sound beginning to recede slightly, moving in a search grid. In the close, dark space, with the immediate threat of the search receding, the dynamics shifted. The focus was no longer on pure flight, but on the next move. And Croft still had the gun. He pulled out a small, rugged satellite phone from his jacket. Not a standard issue. A burner. Untraceable. He thumbed it on, his face illuminated by the pale blue glow. He was making a call. Alpha site. Package is secure, but the delivery channel is compromised. I need extraction. Grid coordinates to follow. Have the technical team on standby. The primary key is physical and requires specialized handling. He listened, his jaw tight. No, the secondary objectives are irretrievably compromised. Containment is lost. We proceed with the contingency. Initiate protocol Scorch on my authority. Authentication code, Croft 79er Viking Scorch. Confirm. My blood ran colder than the creek water. Protocol Scorch. It sounded like exactly what it was. A burn-it-all-down order. Lena stiffened beside me. Scorch? You're going to blow the base? There are hundreds of people in there. Collateral damage in a war they don't even know they're fighting. Croft said coldly, putting the phone away. The evidence vault purge is a localized cleanup. Scorch is a system-wide sanitization. The Guardian server farm beneath Fort Brent. All the schematics. The backup drives, it all goes up in a very large, very unfortunate, catastrophic systems failure triggered by the vault breach. A tragic accident, claiming the lives of many, including the traitor's daughters who caused it. It destroys the physical evidence and creates a smokescreen so large, Carter and his investigators will be sifting through rubble for years. By then, I'll be gone, and the key will be in the hands of people who know how to use it. He was insane. Or a genius. Or both. He was willing to murder an entire base to cover his tracks and buy time. You'll never make it, Riggs said suddenly, his voice strange. He was looking at Croft. And, for the first time, I saw doubt in the captain's eyes. Scorch. Sir, that's our home. Those are our people. They're soldiers. Captain, Croft said, his tone devoid of empathy. They swore an oath to defend this nation, even with their lives. This is how they fulfill it. By their sacrifice. The true defense of the nation continues. Now, you have a choice. You're either part of the solution, or you're part of the rubble. Which is it? Riggs stared, his face a mask of conflict, loyalty warring with horror. Before he could answer, a new sound reached us, not from the air, but from the woods. The crunch of boots on dry leaves. Multiple pairs, moving with purpose, but not the crashing run of a pursuit. The methodical, spreading advance of a search line. CID was on the ground. Croft heard it too. His eyes flashed. Time's up. He made a quick decision. Riggs, with me. We'll draw them off. Lead them east. Toward the old quarry. You too. He glared at Lena and me. Stay here. If you make a sound, if you try to run, I'll hear it. And I will put a bullet in each of your knees and leave you for the animals. Understood? He wasn't taking us. He was stashing us. We were too much of a liability now. Too slow. He'd come back for the key for me if he could. Or leave us to die in the accident he'd just ordered. Lena and I nodded, our faces pale in the dim light. Croft gave us one last, threatening look, then motioned to Riggs. The two men slipped out from under the roots and vanished into the darkness downstream. Moving with practiced stealth, the sounds of the ground search were getting closer, maybe 50 yards away and spreading. The moment they were gone, Lena grabbed my arm. Scorch, we have to stop it. How? I whispered, despair clawing at me. We're stuck in a hole in the ground. He's probably got a 30-minute timer on it. Max, the authentication code, she said, her eyes fierce. Croft 7-9er Viking Scorch. It's a dual-key protocol. He just gave the first half over an unsecured line. The system will demand a second. Physical confirmation. Probably from a terminal in the command center. Or from a dedicated device he carries. So, if we can get to a terminal and input a counterman code, or trigger a system-wide abort, we can stop it. Dad would have built in a backdoor. A way to stop a rogue activation. He told me once. Every firewall has a secret door, in case the guards go crazy. She was digging in her own pockets, pulling out a small, waterproof case. Inside was a slim, black device that looked like a high-tech USB drive. I copied more than just the decoy data. I have access seeds, fragments of Dad's master code. If I can get to any terminal with a direct link to the base's secure network, I might be able to slice in and kill the Scorch command. The boots were closer. 30 yards. Flashlight beams cut through the trees. And how do you propose we do that? Walk up to the CID guys and ask for a computer? No, she said. A wild plan forming in her eyes. We give them what they want. We surrender. What? We surrender to CID. To Carter. He'll take us back to the base. To a secure area. Probably the command center itself, where there are terminals. It's our only way back in before the clock runs out. It was insane. But it was also the only move on the board. Croft and Riggs were leading the search away. CID was here. And a bomb, metaphorical or literal, was ticking under Fort Brent. They'll arrest us. We're fugitives. We're material witnesses and victims of kidnapping. Lena countered. We have the evidence. We have Croft's confession about Dad. Carter will listen. He has to. The first CID soldier appeared at the top of the creek bank, 10 yards upstream, his rifle raised. scanning the area with a night vision scope. Now or never. I took a deep breath, and before I could second guess it, I called out, my voice clear and loud over the rush of the water. Don't shoot. We're here. We surrender. Flashlight beams instantly snapped to our position, blinding us. Show your souls. Hands in the air. Now, Lena and I crawled out from under the roots, mud-covered, soaked, and raised our hands high. We're unarmed. I'm Lieutenant Ella Mitchell. This is Specialist Lena Mitchell. Boots splashed into the creek around us. Rough hands grabbed us, forced us to our knees, patted us down with efficient brutality. Clear, one soldier shouted. A man pushed through the circle. He was older, in his late 50s, with a close-cropped gray beard and the sharp, assessing eyes of a lifelong investigator. He wore a black CAD windbreaker over his body armor. I recognized him from my father's photos. Colonel Jonathan Carter. Mitchell, he said, his voice gravelly and calm. Both of you. Where is General Croft? He went that way, with Captain Riggs, I said, nodding downstream. Maybe 2 minutes ago. He's armed. He just gave an order. Protocol, Scorch. He's going to destroy the base. Carter's eyes hardened. He didn't waste time on doubt. He keyed the mic on his shoulder. All units, be advised. Croft and one accomplice are moving east from my position along the creek bed. He has just activated a base self-destruct protocol. Designation likely, Scorch. I need a ETA on that deactivation team at the command center. And I need it 5 minutes ago. He looked back at us. What's the timer? We don't know, Lena said quickly. But it won't matter if we can't get to a terminal. I have a code fragment. I might be able to stop it. But I need access to the secure network now. Carter studied her face, then mine. He was making a risk assessment of monumental proportions. Trust the daughters of the man he'd once called a friend, who were just implicated in a major theft and escape. Or waste precious minutes. My father's memory decided it. Carter gave a sharp nod. Get them to the command center. Fast. Use my Jeep. And get EOD and the fire department on full alert. We're going to have a very bad night. The ride back was a blur of speed and screaming sirens. Carter's driver ignored roads, cutting across parade grounds. Fort Brent was a scene of controlled pandemonium. CID soldiers were everywhere. The main lights were on, but a new, deeper alarm was blaring, the catastrophe alarm. Personnel were being evacuated from central buildings, streaming toward the perimeter in orderly but urgent lines. We skidded to a halt outside the command center. Carter yanked us out. The vault purge triggered a full systems alert. Croft's office and the main server hub are being evacuated. Where do you need to be? The primary Guardian server room, Lena said without hesitation. It's in sublevel 2. It'll have a direct terminal to the core. It's also the most likely epicenter for the Scorch detonation. Of course it is, Carter muttered. This way. We ran into the building. Downstairs. Bypassing the flow of evacuating personnel, the air smelled of ozone and fear. We reached a heavy blast door marked Restricted Access, Guardian Protocol. It was sealed. It's on lockdown, a tech sergeant said, frantically typing at a wall terminal. The Scorch Protocol has sealed all primary and secondary target zones. I can't override it. How long? Carter barked. The protocol sequence estimated completion in 18 minutes. Sir. But the physical detonations could happen any time after that once the chemical and conventional triggers are armed. Lena pushed forward. She plugged her little black device into a USB port on the terminal. The screen flickered, went black, then displayed a cascading waterfall of green code. Dad's master key fragment. It's looking for a handshake with the core. Come on. Seconds ticked by, each one an eternity. Alarms wailed. The floor beneath us vibrated with a deep, worrying thrum. I'm in, Lena cried. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. I see the Scorch sequence. It's, oh, God. What? It's not just explosives. It's a thermobaric charge in the server room, fueled by the main chemical battery array, and a network-wide data spike designed to fry every connected system on the base. The explosion will take out this whole wing. The EMP-like pulse will brick every vehicle. Comms unit. And computer within a half-mile. She looked up, her face ashen. The abort code. It's asking for a dual authentication. Croft's code was the first. It needs a second. A physical key insertion or a biometric from the project architect. She looked at me. Horror dawning. It needs Dad. Or you. Me? Why me? Because you're the primary genetic key. The system thinks you're him. The Eagle proved that. She pointed to a different port on the terminal. A cylindrical slot. It needs a Mitchell biometric pulse. Read through a dedicated interface. The Eagle was that interface. Croft has it. The hopelessness of it was a physical weight. We had gotten so close. We had the terminal, the access, the will. But we lacked the one physical component Croft had taken with him. The key. There's no other way? Carter asked, his voice tight. No. The system is designed to prevent remote sabotage. You need the key or the original architect. We have neither. Lena slammed her fist on the console in frustration. I stared at the slot. The Eagle. The Eagle has eyes. Dad's voice. A lifetime of dad jokes. The Eagle has eyes. A memory. Sharp and sudden. Cut through the panic. Not of Dad saying it, but of showing it. Years ago, he'd had an old, broken Eagle lapel pin on his workbench. He was tinkering with it. I'd asked what he was doing, just giving the old bird new eyes. Kiddo. He'd used a tiny screwdriver to pop out a small glass lens from the Eagle's head, replacing it with a tiny, almost microscopic chip. See? Now it can see. A little backup camera. Lena. I said, my voice strange. The Eagle. The real one. Dad said it had eyes. What if he didn't mean it metaphorically? What if it's literally a biometric scanner that doesn't need to be to Chedto the slot? What if it just needs to see its slot? To transmit the key via an optical link? She stared at me, then at the terminal. The cylindrical slot. It was just a hole. But what if inside was a receiver for a specific kind of light signal? A signal the Eagle could emit from its eye? It's possible, she breathed. A fiber optic key. But we don't have it. Croft does. But we have the fake. I said, the idea forming fully. Desperate and crazy. Croft has the real one. But he took the fake from the vault. Too. Remember? He had it in his hand before he grabbed the real one. Did he drop it? In the vault? In the Humvee? Lena's eyes went wide. The fake was a trigger. It activated the lockdown. It mimicked a Mitchell biosign. It's a copy. A biometric copy. If Dad built the real one with an optical key, he might have built the fake with the same hardware, just programmed differently. The physical component, the lens, the emitter might be identical. The Humvee, Carter shouted. Understanding. They abandoned it. If the fake is in there. He was already on his radio. Team at the forest extraction point. I need the Humvee we located searched immediately. You're looking for a small, gold Eagle lapel pin. It is priority 1. Find it and get it here now. 10 minutes or we all blow sky high. The next 9 minutes were the longest of my life. We stood in that shaking hallway, watching the countdown Lena had pulled up on a secondary screen. 17:00, 16:30. The vibrations grew stronger. Distant crashes echoed as equipment was moved or fell. CID teams reported Croft and Riggs had been sighted, but lost near the quarry. No sign of the Eagle. At the 8-minute mark, a breathless corporal came skidding around the corner, a small evidence bag in his hand. Inside, glinting dully, was the fake Eagle pin. It had been under the passenger seat of the Humvee. Lena snatched it. She didn't open the bag. She simply pressed the clear plastic against the cylindrical port on the terminal, aligning the Eagle's head with the hole. Please, she whispered. Please. Dad. Nothing happened. Try taking it out. I said. She tore the bag open, letting the cool metal pin drop into her palm. She held it directly against the port, twisting it slightly. A soft, almost inaudible click came from the terminal. On the screen, the scrolling red text of the Scorch abort sequence changed. Secondary biometric interface detected. Scanning. A thin beam of blue light shot from the center of the port, hitting the Eagle's eye. The gold metal seemed to glow from within for a second. Mitchell. John, proxy. Signature confirmed. Protocol Scorch. Abort sequence initiated. Disarming primary detonators. Disarmed. Purging chemical triggers. Purged. Canceling data spike broadcast. Cancelled. Abort complete. All systems stand by. The deep, shuddering thrum in the floor ceased. The catastrophe alarm cut off mid-wail, leaving a ringing, blessed silence, broken only by the remaining, softer lockdown sirens. For a moment, no one spoke. We just stared at the screen, at the words abort complete. Then, Colonel Carter let out a long, shaky breath. Good God. He looked at Lena, then at me, with new respect. Your father would be proud. The relief was so profound it was dizzying. But it wasn't over. Croft. I said, he's still out there. With the real key. Carter's radio crackled. Colonel, we have them. Cornered at the edge of the quarry. Croft is using Captain Riggs as a human shield. He's demanding a vehicle and safe passage. Carter's face set into grim lines. Negotiate. Stall him. I'm on my way. He looked at us. You two should go to the infirmary. No. Lena and I said in unison. We exchanged a glance. A flicker of the old, unspoken understanding passing between us. We're going with you. I said. It ends with us. Carter hesitated, then nodded. Stay behind the line. And for God's sake, do nothing stupid. The old limestone quarry was a giant, moonlit bowl of shadows at the northern edge of the base. CAD had it surrounded. A ring of red laser dots trained on a small, rocky outcrop about halfway down the steep side. On the outcrop, two figures were silhouetted against the sky. Croft, standing tall, and Riggs, held in front of him. Croft's arm locked around his throat, a pistol to his head. A loudspeaker voice echoed. General Croft, there is no way out. Release Captain Riggs and surrender. Bring me a vehicle. Croft's voice shouted back, raw and frayed. Now, or I drop him. And then I start on the data core. I'll smash it on these rocks. You'll never get your evidence. He held up his other hand, even from a distance. I could see the glint of the eagle pin and the USB drive. Carter. Lena. And I crouched behind a CID vehicle at the quarry rim. He's bluffing about the data. Lena whispered. The drive is corrupt. The eagle is all he has left. But Riggs isn't a bluff. I said. The captain's face, even in the poor light, was a mask of terror and betrayal. We have snipers, a CID agent said to Carter. One clear shot. But the angle is bad with the hostage. And if he falls, he takes the key with him into the quarry. I'm not losing that key. And I'm not executing a hostage on live optics. Carter said grimly. We wait. He'll get tired. He'll make a mistake. But Croft wasn't getting tired. He was getting desperate. And desperate men are unpredictable. Mitchell, he suddenly roared, his voice echoing across the stone bowl. I know you're out there. Ella, Lena, show yourselves. Carter shot us a warning look. Don't. But Croft screamed again. Show me my nieces. Or I swear I'll put a bullet in Riggs and jump with the key. You'll never find it in those rocks. He was crazy enough to do it. To kill his last loyal man and destroy his prize. Just to spite us. Lena looked at me. I saw the same resolve in her eyes. This had started with us. It had to end with us. Before Carter could stop us. We stood up and stepped out from behind the vehicle. Into the open. We're here. Martin. Lena called out, her voice clear and cutting. Let him go. It's over. On the outcrop. Croft shifted, pushing Riggs aside slightly to get a better look at us. The red laser dots danced over his chest and head. Is it? You stopped Scorch. I felt it. Clever girls. But I still have the key. The real key. The one that matters. And I have nothing left to lose. You have your life. I shouted. Surrender. Face a trial. It's better than dying here in the dirt. A trial? A cage? No. He shook his head. I have a better offer. A trade. You. Ella. You come down here. You're my ticket out. We walk to a vehicle together. Once I'm clear, I let you go. You have my word as an officer. His word was worthless. We all knew it. He'd kill me the moment he was safe, or take me as a permanent hostage. But it was a move. A chance to close the distance. Don't you dare. Lena hissed at me, but I was already thinking. The distance was about 50 yards down a steep, rocky slope. If I could get close. If I could distract him. Okay, I yelled, my hands in the air. Okay, I'm coming down. Just don't hurt him. I started picking my way down the loose scree at the edge of the quarry. Ella. No. Lena cried behind me. Carter was cursing, ordering his snipers to hold fire. This was a nightmare. I slid and stumbled down the slope, my eyes fixed on Croft. He watched me come, a predator's smile on his face. He'd pushed Riggs to his knees now, the gun still on him, but his focus was on me, the prize and the key, coming to him. I was 20 yards away, close enough to see the sweat on his brow, the wild look in his eyes. The eagle pin was clutched so tightly in his fist his knuckles were white. That's far enough, he said. Turn around. Put your hands behind your back. I stopped. I didn't turn. I looked past him, at Riggs. The captain's eyes met mine, and in them, I saw something shift. Not just fear, a decision. Croft had just offered to trade me for him. He'd just heard his general call him expendable. The last shred of loyalty broke. The eagle has eyes. General, I said, my voice calm. Croft frowned. What? My father used to say that. The eagle has eyes. You never understood what it meant. Did you? It meant he was a sentimental old man who hid cameras in his jewelry. Croft sneered. No, I said, taking a slow step closer. It meant he was always watching. The eagle you're holding? The real one? Its eyes aren't just glass. They're lenses. And for the last 10 minutes, since you took it from the vault, they've been transmitting. Live. Encrypted. To the same servers Lena used. Every word you've said. Every order you've given. Your confession about my father. Your scorch command. This standoff. It's all being recorded. Right now. The whole world is watching. Martin. Or at least, the parts of it that matter. It was a bluff. A magnificent, desperate bluff. I had no idea if the eagle had a camera. But Dad's joke. The backup camera he'd shown me. It was possible. And the look on Croft's face was worth it. His eyes widened in genuine, primal fear. He looked down at the eagle in his hand as if it were a live scorpion. You're lying, he whispered. But the doubt was there. Corrosive and complete. Am I? I took another step. The system recognized a Mitchell biometric. It accepted the fake as a proxy. What do you think the real one is capable of? It's not just a key. It's a witness. Dad's final witness. And you've been holding it in your hand the whole time. It was the final psychological blow. The idea that his triumph, the object he'd killed for, had been betraying him from the moment he touched it. That his every move had been seen. His sanity, already stretched to the breaking point, snapped. With a roar of pure, incoherent rage, he drew back his arm and hurled the eagle pin away from him, out into the dark void of the quarry. No, in that exact moment, two things happened. Captain Riggs, seizing his chance, lunged sideways, throwing himself off the outcrop and down the steep slope, out of the line of fire. And Croft, distracted by his own throw and Riggs's movement, turned the gun from where Riggs had been, towards me. I saw the muzzle flash before I heard the shot, but the shot never reached me. Lena, who had been moving down the slope the moment Croft's attention broke, threw herself in front of me. The bullet meant for my chest took her high in the shoulder, spinning her around with a sickening thud. She cried out, falling back against me, and we both tumbled to the rocky ground. On the outcrop, Croft stared, stunned for a microsecond at what he'd done. A microsecond too long. From the quarry rim, a single, sharp crack split the night. General Martin Croft jerked as if punched. A dark bloom appeared on the front of his jacket. He looked down, surprised, then his legs buckled, and he dropped to his knees, then slumped forward, motionless, on the edge of the rock. The red laser dots on his body winked out. Silence. For one heartbeat. Two. Then the quarry erupted into sound, shouted orders. The rush of boots. Medics crying gunshot wound. Here. I cradled Lena in my arms, pressing my hand against the bloody ruin of her shoulder. Her face was pale, her breathing ragged. "Lena, hang on. Medics." She looked up at me, her eyes glassy with pain, but clear. "The Eagle. You were bluffing, right?" I managed a choked laugh that was half a sob. "Yeah, I was bluffing." A faint, pained smile touched her lips. "Good bluff, sis." Her eyes fluttered closed. "Lena," I screamed. Then the medics were there, pulling me away, surrounding her, their voices urgent and professional. I was left kneeling in the dirt, covered in my sister's blood, staring at the dark shape of General Croft on the rocks. As the first gray light of dawn began to seep into the eastern sky, the medevac helicopter's rotors beat a frantic rhythm against the dawn, drowning out all other sound. Inside, the world was a blur of controlled panic. Lena lay on the stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face, and 4 in her arm, her skin the color of chalk under the cabin's sterile lights. A medic worked over her, his hands moving with swift, sure motions, calling out numbers and readings, the coppery smell of blood mixed with antiseptic. I sat on the bench across from her, held in place by a safety harness, unable to look away. My hands, resting on my knees, were crusted with dried, rusty red. Her blood. My uniform was torn, mud-spattered, and stained. I was a ghost, watching life fight to stay in my sister's body. The flight to the Civilian Trauma Center in Richmond felt like an eternity compressed into 18 minutes. When we landed on the roof, a waiting trauma team swarmed the bird, transferring Lena onto a gurney with seamless efficiency. They rushed her through swinging doors, and I was left standing on the helipad, the morning wind cold and sudden, the sound of the departing helicopter fading into the hum of the city waking up. A CID agent, a woman with a kind, tired face, gently guided me inside. "Come on, Lieutenant. Let's get you looked at." I was examined in a small ER room. Superficial cuts, bruises, dehydration, shock. They cleaned me up, gave me a set of green hospital scrubs to change into, and a cup of terrible coffee that tasted like heaven. I sat in a quiet family waiting room outside the surgical wing. Colonel Carter found me there an hour later. He looked exhausted, his CID windbreaker smudged with dirt, but his eyes were alert. "She's in surgery." The bullet fragmented against the clavicle, did some damage, but it missed the major vessels and the lung. The surgeon is optimistic. "She's tough." The relief was a physical unclenching of muscles I didn't know I'd been holding. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Croft is dead," Carter continued, his voice flat. "Single shot. Center mass. Captain Riggs has been taken into custody. He's singing like a canary, everything he knows about Croft's operation, the fraudulent procurement, the shadow funds, the plan for Guardian. It's extensive." "The Eagle?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Did they find it?" Carter's mouth tightened. "Divers are searching the quarry pool. It's deep, and the bottom is silt and rock. It may take time, but between Riggs's testimony, the data from Lena's servers, and the forensic evidence in Croft's office and the vault, we have more than enough to build a case that will stand up to any scrutiny." He sat down heavily in the chair opposite me. "Your father's name will be cleared, Ella, fully, posthumously. What he discovered, what he tried to expose, it was real, and he died for it. I should have listened to him sooner. The grief for my father, held back by crisis and survival, welled up, sharp and fresh. I swallowed it down. What happens now? To us? To you and your sister?" Carter sighed. "You're both material witnesses, victims, and participants in events that included theft, escaping custody, and discharging a weapon on a federal installation." He held up a hand as I started to protest. "I know the context. The JAG Corps and the Inspector General's office are already involved. My recommendation, and the mountain of exculpatory evidence, will carry significant weight. Lena's cooperation, her role in exposing the plot, and her injury will factor heavily. My guess? For her, a general discharge under honorable conditions. At worst, the Army will want this cleaned up neatly. For you, He looked at me. Your record was spotless before this. You were following what you believed was a lawful order from your sister. Then you were kidnapped and used as a human shield by a rogue general. You'll likely face an Article 15 for the escape. Maybe a letter of reprimand, but you'll keep your commission. They might even offer you a promotion to get you to stay quiet and play ball. It was a cold, political calculus. The army protecting itself. But it was also a path forward. And the real story? What Croft was trying to build. Guardian Protocol, the weaponized version, is dead. The servers are being physically dismantled under congressional oversight. The concept of Guardian, the defensive cyber failsafe your father originally designed, might be revisited, with proper safeguards, in a decade or two. The official story will be a complex case of procurement fraud and abuse of power by a senior officer, who tragically took his own life when confronted. The more exotic elements will be redacted. For national security. I understood. The truth, but not the whole truth. The public would get a satisfying, scandalous story. The deeper, darker secrets would remain in vaults, known only to a select few. It was how the world worked. It was how my father had gotten killed. I want to see the report, I said. The full, unredacted one. Carter studied me, then nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do. You've earned that much. He stood. Get some rest, Lieutenant. Your sister will be in recovery for a few hours. I'll have an agent outside. You're not under guard, just under protection, until we round up the last of Croft's network. He left. I sat in the quiet room, the rising sun painting orange stripes on the floor. The adrenaline was gone, leaving a hollow, trembling exhaustion. I leaned my head back against the wall and closed my eyes. Not to sleep, but to finally stop running. 1 month later, the air in the Senate hearing room was cool, dry, and thick with solemnity. I sat at a long wooden table, facing a semicircle of elevated desks, members of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Their faces a mix of gravitas and practiced neutrality. Looked down at me. Flanking me were Colonel Carter and a JAG lawyer. In the public gallery behind me, I knew Lena was sitting, her arm in a sling, her posture straight. Lieutenant Mitchell, the chairman, a senior senator with a kind face and sharp eyes, began. The committee thanks you for your testimony today, and for your service. Your account, and the evidence provided by Colonel Carter, paints a disturbing picture of criminal conspiracy at the highest levels of command at Fort Brent. Is there anything you would like to add? For the record, before we conclude, I looked at the microphone in front of me. I had given my statement, the official, sanitized version. Meeting Lena, the arrest, Croft's revelations about my father, our forced cooperation, the vault, the escape, the standoff. I'd left out the nuances, Lena's initial deception, my theft of the notebook, the details of the duress protocol. Those were in Carter's classified annex. But there was one thing left. Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to read a statement. I unfolded a single sheet of paper. My hand was steady. My father, Lieutenant Colonel John Mitchell, believed in this country and its ideals with every fiber of his being. He believed the uniform he wore was a sacred trust. When he discovered that trust was being betrayed, not by an external enemy, but from within, he followed the rules. He sought to expose the truth through the proper channels. He was murdered for it. General Croft betrayed his oath, betrayed his soldiers, and took the life of a better man. But this isn't just about one bad general. It's about the system that allowed him to operate in the shadows for so long. A system that views whistleblowers as problems and loyalty as blind obedience. My sister and I almost became victims of that same system. We were saved not by the system, but in spite of it, by the courage of a few individuals like Colonel Carter, and by the failsafes my father, in his wisdom, built into the very designs they were corrupting. I looked up, meeting the eyes of the senators. The greatest honor this committee can do for my father, and for every soldier who serves in good faith, is to ensure that the proper channels he tried to use are not just open, but actively protected. That the next John Mitchell who sees something wrong can speak up without fear of a training accident. That is the legacy he would have wanted. Thank you. There was a moment of silence, then a soft murmur from the gallery. The chairman nodded slowly. Well said, Lieutenant. Your father's record has been expunged of all derogatory remarks and will reflect his honorable service and posthumous awards for valor. This committee will take your words under serious advisement. You are dismissed. As I stood, the room erupted in the subdued rustle of movement and conversation. I felt lighter than I had in months. Arlington National Cemetery. A week later, we stood at our father's graveside again. The sky was a clear, aching blue. The new headstone was simple, clean, and at the bottom, below his name and dates, were 3 newly engraved words: soldier, patriot, father. Lena stood beside me, out of uniform, in a simple black dress, her arms still in a sling but her color back. The general discharge had come through. As Carter predicted, it stung, but it was a clean break. She was already talking about going back to school, maybe for political science, turning her pain into policy. She'd said, I was still in. The letter of reprimand was in my file, a permanent smudge. But the offer had come. As Carter foresaw, a promotion to captain and a transfer to the Defense Intelligence Agency, in their Emerging Threats Analysis Division. A desk job, far from the field. A place where my experience with Guardian and systemic corruption might actually be useful. I'd accepted. We stood in silence for a long time, listening to the wind in the trees and the distant sound of taps for another service. I'm sorry, Lena said, her voice soft. It was the 100th time she'd said it this month. I know, I said. It was the 100th time I'd replied. And I forgive you. That part was newer. It was becoming more true every day. He'd be glad we're here. Together, she said. He'd be furious we took so long. I replied, a small smile touching my lips. She smiled back, a real one, tinged with sadness. Yeah, he would. We left the cemetery together. Not quite the sisters we were, but something new. Something battle-scarred and stronger at the broken places. 2 weeks later, DA headquarters, Washington, D.C. My new office was small, windowless, and blissfully quiet. A stack of preliminary briefings on my desk, a secure terminal, a coffee mug that said World's Okayest Analyst. I was settling in, the strange rhythm of paperwork and secure video conferences starting to feel normal. A sealed, internal delivery package appeared on my desk. No return address, just my name and a classification sticker. I opened it. Inside, nestled in shock-absorbent foam, was the eagle lapel pin, the real one. It was scratched and dulled from its adventure in the quarry, but intact. Beneath it was a single sheet of heavy, cream-colored paper, my father's handwriting. I picked it up with trembling hands. For my daughters. If you are reading this, the eagle's eyes have seen through the darkness. I am sorry for the burden I have left you. The world is not as simple as I once believed, nor as corrupt as I later feared. The truth is a weapon, but it is a heavy one. Wield it with care. Trust is a shield, but it is fragile. Mend it when it breaks. This key was never meant to unlock a weapon. It was meant to unlock the truth. I built a backdoor, not for power, but for accountability. The eyes are real. A tiny camera, a data buffer. It records upon specific biometric stress signatures: fear, rage, the pulse of a lie. Its memory is limited, but potent. I hope you never need to see what it has seen. Remember, the greatest defense is not a stronger lock, but better guardians. Be those guardians. With all my love, Dad. I stared at the letter, then at the eagle, the eyes. My desperate bluff at the quarry hadn't been a bluff at all. He had been watching. A sob caught in my throat, followed by a laugh. Of course he had. There was a data port on the pin's back, almost invisible. I plugged it into a secure, air-gapped reader on my desk. A single file appeared. A video file, time-stamped from the day of the vault. I opened it. The view was shaky, from Croft's fist. The audio was crisp. I saw the vault, heard his triumphant words, his confession about my father's murder, his cold order for Protocol Scorch. I watched as he threw the pin, the sky spinning, then darkness and the sound of water. The final recording, the ultimate evidence, Dad's last gift. Not just of vindication, but of absolute, irrefutable truth. I ejected the pin, holding it in my palm. It felt warm. I made a decision. I wouldn't file this. Not yet. Some truths were weapons best kept in reserve. I placed the pin and the letter in my desk drawer. Locking it, my secure phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Lunch? I'm in the city. Found a place that doesn't serve MREs. I walked to my one small window that looked out over an interior courtyard. Down on the street, 5 stories below. I saw her. She was looking up, one hand shielding her eyes, the other in her sling. She waved. I smiled and texted back. Give me 10. And it better have real coffee. I looked at the eagle pin once more, lying in the drawer. Then I closed it, grabbed my jacket, and headed out. The work of a guardian wasn't just about keeping secrets. It was about living in the light they protected. Downstairs, I pushed through the heavy glass doors into the bright afternoon. Lena was waiting. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a promise we had earned. The sun caught the DI seal on the building behind me, an eagle with wings spread wide. I didn't look back.